This is 8th grade lesson 5.2. In this lesson, students will review the sum of the angles of a triangle. Students will also classify triangles according to their angles and sides. The standards covered in this lesson are 8G5. The page numbers out of the hardcover book are page 190 through 195, and out of the practice journal, pages 99 through 102. We're going to start out with working through having students identify the sum of the angles of a triangle. So when you look at this triangle, we have to remember that the angles of a triangle, when added together, equal 180 degrees. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and classify this triangle, but in order to do that, we have to go ahead and find out what x is. So there's two ways that you can do this. First of all, you could add together your knowns. Okay, so when we add those together, we get 89, so we can add those together. We know that 89 plus something, x, equals 180 degrees. We can then go ahead and subtract our 89. So minus 89 to get it by itself, minus 89. When we go through and we subtract this out, and you can use your calculator for this, you end up with 91 degrees. So we just found out that x equals 91 degrees. Now we can go ahead and classify this triangle according to its angle measures. So when we do that, the key thing is look at your largest angle measure. That is going to determine the type of triangle it is according to angles. So when we look at the largest angle measure, it's 91 degrees. 91 degrees would be considered an obtuse angle because it's larger than 90. So this would be considered an obtuse triangle. Okay. According to its side lengths, well, as we discussed in the first part of this, chapter or section in the activity, that when we look at the angle measures, even if they don't give us markings on the side, we can identify the type of triangle and its side lengths just by looking at the angle measures. When we look here, we notice that we do not have any angles that are the same, which means none of the sides have the same length. So the type of triangle that has no sides that are the same would be our scalene triangle. Okay, remember from as we went through and worked the activity, equilateral means all are equal. Okay, isosceles, you had one side that was isolated or is different than the other two. The other two were the same. And a scalene has no sides that are equal to each other. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just practice multiple reps working through this. So it says find each value of x, then classify the triangle according to its angle measure. The other method that you could use other than adding the two known measures together is you could, on your calculator, you could take 180 degrees and then just subtract off your known degree measures. It's just another method that you can use. Or you can go ahead and do like we've been doing and add together what you know, which would give us 78. So then 180 minus 78 would give us 102 degrees. Okay, so we now know that x is 102 degrees. Okay, so once again, the angle measure that we look at to identify the name of the triangle according to its angle is we'll look at the largest angle degree, or the largest angle, which is 102 degrees. So 102 would be considered what type of an angle? An obtuse angle. So therefore it's considered an obtuse triangle. Okay, to determine the side lengths, we either have to go through and look for markings. If it has markings that are the same on two sides, that means those sides are the same length. Or we can look at the angle measures, and we look at our angle measures. We've got 28, 50, and 102. Well, none of those are the same, which means that none of the sides are the same either. So if no sides are the same length, that's the scalene. Okay, so you're going to have to come up with a method that you can use to remember the difference between isosceles and scalene, because those are the ones that are most easily confused. I like to use the idea that isosceles isolates one side or makes it different than the others. So therefore, I kind of eliminate the fact that equilateral has equal in it. Isosceles is one side is different, which means then scalene would have all sides are different. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. Okay, so here we're working through where we've got decimals, and it doesn't matter if they give us decimal angle measures, we still go through and do the same process. So we're gonna go ahead and solve for x by getting rid of our knowns. So 180, and this time I'm gonna go ahead and take 180 and subtract off the two that I know. So if I subtract off 105, 180 minus 105.6, and then subtract off my 28.4. When I do that, it gives me 46. I would get the same answer if I went through and added these two together and then subtracted it. So I just found out that x is 46 degrees. Okay. All right, according to angle name, we're gonna go ahead and look at the largest angle measure, which was our 105.6. And that would be considered an obtuse angle because it's larger than 90, so it's an obtuse triangle. Oops. And according to side lengths, well, when we look at our angle measures, none of the angles are the same. That's called a scalene triangle. So far we've worked with a lot of obtuse and scalene triangles. So this next one, I'm gonna go ahead and pull out, and I want you to try it. So you're gonna wanna pause your video, solve for x, and then identify the triangle according to its angle name and its side length. Okay, so go ahead and try this one. Pause your video, and then when you're finished solving for each of those, go ahead and start your video back up. Okay, so you should have ended up with x being 75 degrees. When we look at our largest angle measure, it was 78. That would be considered an acute angle, so it's an acute triangle. And according to side lengths, well, we have no angles that are the same, which means no sides are the same. You should have gotten scalene. All right, let's try another one. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video and work your way through this one. Okay, so on this one, you should have gotten 31 degrees for x. It was a right triangle because it involved that corner block, which means a right angle, and scalene because none of our lengths were the same, none of our angles were the same. Okay, so here's another one where you're working off of a figure, and they've just identified this green triangle. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and work through to solve for x. Now the tricky thing on this one is this time they gave us two x's. So remember, it's two x's that equal what's left over. So in this situation, if I wanted to solve for my angle measures, well, I would go ahead and get rid of what I already know. So I know it's 180 degrees, and I'm gonna get rid of that 128. So 180 minus my 128 is going to give me 52 degrees. Now, would it be logical for each of these to be 52 degrees? Well, if I were to go through and check just the sum of what I have written there, 52 plus 52 plus 128 gives me 232. And remember, a triangle has to equal 180. So there's something that I need to do with this 52 degree measure once I find what's left over. Well, I need to split that because really it's two x's that equal the 52. So now that you see it as an algebraic equation, we'll go ahead and just divide by 2 or split it by 2, which would give us 26 degrees. Okay, so now each of my x's is worth 26 degrees. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and name it according to its angle measures and its sides. So the largest angle measure is going to tell us the name of the triangle, 128 degrees, and it is an obtuse. angle, so it's an obtuse triangle. And we've got two angle measures that are the same, which means there's one isolated that's not the same. So that would be an isosceles triangle. Okay, the key thing on this is that you're just understanding how to go through and identify what a triangle's name is according to those things. The angle measures are probably the easiest just because you guys have worked with acute, right, and obtuse angles before. And equiangular just means all angles are equal. Equilateral, once again, is probably easy according to sides because it has part of the word equal in it. It's the isosceles and scalene that you have to come up with a method to use to be able to remember the difference between those. I like to use the iso, the isolation, or one is isolated from the others, so therefore it was different. I had one difference here. So that's what I like to use to remember it. The more you work with them, the easier it becomes. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more to go ahead and try. Okay, so go ahead and try this one. I want you to go ahead and solve for x and then name this triangle according to its angles and its side lengths. So go ahead and pause your video and work your way through this one. Okay, so this one you should have ended up with x being 60 degrees. So we ended up with all of them being 60. So it became an equiangular as well as an equilateral triangle. This could also be considered an acute triangle, but most precisely named would be equiangular. That's it for this lesson. Good luck, and just remember a triangle equals the sum of the angles is 180 degrees.